Welcome to I Hate Army Painting, the series where I find the best way to paint my Warhammer army and suffer throughout the journey. And I have to clarify, I hate army painting, but not army painter. Those guys are right. In fact, today we are testing one of their products, a tool I never thought I'll use myself. The dipping can. The way it works is incredibly fast. You simply dip the miniature into this little can, take it out, and there's your shading. And although this might be the fastest way to shade your minis, is it actually good, and is it better than oil wash? We'll find out very soon. But first, I gotta do the most tedious part, which is assembly. Oh my god, why do I have to do all this? I really wish Sprue Boy was still here. Who the hell could that be?
Zumikita,
Yes?
this is for you.
A message? And a box?
A gift from this poor boy.
Dear Zumikito, soon we'll
Meet again. When the time is right, I'll give you the instructions. You have nothing to fear, and as a sign of goodwill, here are assembled models.
Why does he keep sending me miniatures? Oh well.
And after priming the minis with black and red primer to speed things up, something unexpected happened. I've done fucked up. So, looking at the models, they unfortunately developed this very strange texture, and I don't think I can get rid of it by simply painting over it. So that means that I will have to strip these guys. I don't know what it is, but every time I use Mephiston Red in a spray can, something bad happens. I don't know, maybe I didn't shake it well enough, but whenever I use a black rattle can, stuff like this doesn't really happen, so it's very strange. Kurva! Stripping paint from the models is pretty straightforward. A jar of isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush will do the trick. And since the primer was not fully cured, it was faster than expected. But was it fun? Well, what do you think? Okay, after all of that, we are back in a game, baby. These guys are gonna be mostly red, just like the box art. Initially, I wanted to use the red primer instead of base coating them red with a brush to make it faster. But after screwing myself over, I guess airbrushing also works. This is actually the reason why I don't like army painting. To be efficient, you're kinda forced to take shortcuts, and sometimes that might lead to major fuck-ups, like you've seen right here. Display painting, on the other hand, I really do enjoy. And if you enjoy display painting yourself and you like improving, you might enjoy what I share in my newsletter. I send extra tips and tricks that don't always make it into a video, and it's free. So if you wanna level up your painting, check the link in the description. One last thing before we go for the dip is base coating the fabric. Again, just like the box art, we go for purple. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. You might have noticed we've been using 10 miniatures. That's because 5 of them are shaded with oil wash and the other 5 with the dip. Let's start with the undisputed king of shading, the oil wash. You've seen it, you love it, it's as easy as mixing oil paint with mineral spirits or turpentine. It's up to you if you wanna make it thick and more prominent, or thinner and more subtle. The magic here is that the oil wash spreads very easily along the recesses, much better than acrylic washes. But even if you apply a thick layer, you can simply reactivate it hours later and wipe off the excess. To do so, I use pure mineral spirit and these cotton swabs. There is a little bit of a problem though. Since the recesses here are more shallow than on something like a Space Marine's armor, I accidentally wiped off too much. And although usually I would be way more precise during these steps, it's not like the dip is gonna be any better. Right? Right? Okay, so this is the result after the oil wash. Again, I would prefer more prominent shading, but I am fine with this. Perfect, it's finally time to test the dip. And I gotta tell you, this seemingly unsuspicious painting product sent me on an absolute emotional roller coaster. This is the first time I am using it, and just opening it seems like an uphill battle. I've tried various tools and even my knife. Nothing really worked. So I checked the label to see if there are any opening instructions. Only to find out it takes 24 to 48 hours to fully dry. Jesus. At this point, I felt like I might actually just give up. I don't want to wait for 2 days until I can paint on top. But as I was turning the label looking for opening instructions, I found something that was absolutely shocking. You see, you might have thought that we are comparing oil wash to dipping into an acrylic wash. This, however, is incorrect. These are not acrylic washes. These are oil washes.
Give it to me.
This turned my skepticism into hope. If it behaves the same way as my own oil wash, it'll be great. So I finally opened it, decided to use darker one, stir, don't shake, and it's showtime. What the fuck? This looks bloody awful! At this point I was wondering who thought it's a good idea to dip your precious model into a paint as thick as tar. In fact, I kinda dreaded the idea of waiting for 2 days to strip this glossy mess. And to really drill into your head how frustrated I was, let me read some of my notes. I guess this is a viable way to shade your models, if you wanna fuck them up. The question isn't whether it will obscure the details or not. The question is, how much, and whether you'll recognize the initial model at all. And 3, the last one, if you have to forcefully shit out an entire army in a very short period of time, this is a legit way to do it. Despite all that, I was already too invested, so I continue, while trying to shake off the excess wash. I could use mineral spirit to wipe off the excess, but at that point I could just use my own oil wash, so I wanted to roll with the intended way. To my surprise, they were completely dry the very next day. And as you can see the comparison between the dip on the left and the oil wash on the right, you might be wondering if we can even save this. Of course, this will be answered at the end, so let's just continue for now. It really wouldn't be possible to do anything else without applying matte varnish. If we were doing the proper army painter method, we should have base coated everything first and then dip it. However, I wanna paint on top of the shading, so it has cleaner finish. That's especially important for the white helmet. And you know what? After the first coat of matte varnish, they don't look as bad. Another nice thing is that since I didn't wipe off any excess, even the shallow details are easily, nicely shaded. What am I saying here? Is this actually good? To continue with the white helmets, first I base coat them with gray. And to paint a white gradient fast, I've used airbrush. Ideally, you should use masking tape at this point, but I didn't. This means there is a bit of an overspray, but we'll deal with that later. An easy solution that also makes the top of the figure more saturated is to apply a thin coat of contrast paint. Inks could also work, whatever is at your disposal. A bit later we'll also touch up the red parts, so maybe we could have skipped this step. Filling in more and more details, they started to look better and better. And by the time I was finishing the guns, it wasn't super obvious which badge is which. And with some further touch-ups on the red armor, the differences between the two badges were even less recognizable. Probably the biggest giveaway are the bases, where you can see a thick line around the rim on some of them. But aside from that, you'll notice that the front parts of the guns sort of fuse together. This really isn't as big of a problem until you focus on that. And honestly, I expected way worse. After another coat of matte varnish, I also clean up the fabric. Here, it's also quite obvious which ones are dipped, because they have an actual buildup of paint at the bottom. Now, mind you, this doesn't happen if the paint is just too thick, but if you let it pool in one spot, that's the real problem. So generally, you can get away with using thicker paint consistency as long as you spread it and it doesn't pool anywhere too much. As a cherry on top, I'll do something that I was avoiding for this entire series. These guys could really use some decals. So after a coat of gloss varnish, I slap them on and apply a special solution to make them stay firmly in place. And to get rid of that gloss, unsurprisingly we apply third coat of matte varnish. The decals gave it a proper level up. It took them from being quite harsh to looking like, well, toys. Of course, for a display piece, freehands are a better solution, but for these guys, this is good. You know what? Looking at these two side by side, I really can't see that much of a difference. Those touch-ups on top worked some real magic. Probably the most obvious hint are the details that were fused together with that thick dipping sauce. But all in all, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the dip is not bad. Dare I say, it's fine. There are three things that separate it from being just fine to being quite good. First one is the drying time. The fact that I have to wait for at least 10 hours or so is pretty annoying, but ultimately not too bad if you can plan ahead. Second is the unpredictable shading pattern. This is barely surprising given we completely submerge the figures and don't use brush at all. But again, for army painting, this is acceptable. And finally, it's the thickness. Perhaps this is the worst problem because the viscosity of the product makes the paint pool quite heavily. And if it pools at the wrong spots, it's gonna look weird and you can't paint on top of it. Now, this is the first time I was using it and already I got a few ideas how to use it more effectively. For example, I could have done this outside and shake off the excess more violently. In fact, now I'm kinda sad I didn't do that in the first place. Oh well. While this isn't the most high quality painting method, it's the fastest shading solution and the speed of it makes me wanna give it 5 beards out of 10. Good enough if you accept the drawbacks. And honestly, on the tabletop, you probably can't see the difference. With 2 more units of Wraith Guard, we are at around 1200 points, but we still have to paint some more HQs. Anyway, if you also don't enjoy army painting and you would much rather improve your display painting skills, check out this video next because it'll help you with that. And see you there.